We are at the Capitol with Representative Todd Thomsen of the Ada area. Todd, thanks, man, for stopping by.
Man, it's great. And I think I'm going to kiss a fool because I've got an itchy nose. But anyway, that's how the old saying goes. It's really great to be here. This has been an incredible 2 weeks at the Capitol for me. In fact, all the other representatives are giving me a hard time because every single day I've had somebody at the Capitol that I've had an opportunity to introduce. And we've had several student groups. But the really fun thing for me this week, a really special moment for me, was having the opportunity to bring the Veteran of the Week up. It was my first opportunity to do so. A friend of mine named Buck Buxton from Ada. One of those guys, like many veterans that participated in some really intense combat missions, whether it be World War II, Korea, Vietnam. It seems like those individuals just don't ever share anything about themselves. So I've known Buck Buxton for all these years and never knew that he was a chopper pilot in the Vietnam conflict. And as I said on the House floor, I've always watched the Vietnam movies like Platoon and those kind of things, and they've always been signified by the whoosh, whoosh, whoosh of the helicopter. And you see those guys, and I've always thought, man, what guts it took for those guys to fly in and out of the enemy territory and pick people up, drop people off, and cover for people. And yet he was one of those guys, and we brought him up this week, and man, it was just a moving moment. We present them with a flag, and that's one thing that separates us, or that's unique about us in the House, is that we do that every week. And so he got to come up. We presented him with the flag that was flown over the state capitol. We had him lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I think that people ought to understand that one thing that's a priority for us here is those very basic fundamental values. And we do the Pledge of Allegiance every week, and we do prayer every day and devotion every week. And so not only was I able to bring up the veteran, I was also able to bring up the pastor of the week, Pastor Pat Kilby from First Baptist. And I want all the First Baptist people and the Ada people to know that they should be very proud of Pastor Kilby and all that he did. You know, Pastor Kilby came up and really talked right around everything about politics and talked right at the heart of what our job is and what many other, anybody else that has a role of leadership, and just talked about the essence of leadership and being a true leader and doing leadership as opposed to being a leader. And so those have been some interesting things that have happened this week.
That is really neat, and that's people coming up to be involved in their government by invitation. But Todd, it doesn't take an invitation to come up and see you or to impact legislation.
No, it doesn't. And you know, we had some students here yesterday. I think we had a student from East Central that joined in with a group of other students, and they were up here kind of protesting the expense for textbooks and for you know, their student fees that they have. And they made a big presentation on the first floor. And really, that's what it's all about: coming up here, voicing your opinion, being a part of the process, engaging in the process. And that's what they did. I had a group from a little school in the Ada area that came up. We had a fun time with them. We got to sit them on the House floor in the chairs. The sergeant at arms in there, they let us use the microphones, and so we got to pretend like, you know, this little second grader was Representative Humphreys, or this little person was so-and-so, and they got to ask questions, and some very, you know, in-depth questions that they had for such young people, but they got to be a part of the process and see it. And so now they say, okay, all of the aura about the place and the fear that I had has kind of been broken off. Now I understand a little bit more, and I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do.
Yeah, and it's the essence of what you're saying. So many classes come up from the elementary age. I remember my elementary class coming up to the Capitol, but the years go by and I don't make that visit anymore, and it becomes intimidating again. But that's what we want to share with you, is that it shouldn't be. Get your emails ready. Get to your computer, because we're going to talk about budget. And I'm sure that's something that's heavy on everybody's heart, is how the state spends our money. Todd, talk a little bit about the budget, and let us know what your views are with all the studies that have gone on through this session.
Well, right now, and one thing that I don't get to be privy to is the direct budget negotiations that are taking place. You know, there's a lot of issues this year that are very unique to this session than any other session because of the stimulus money. Because not only is it very difficult to get the leadership of the Senate, the leadership of the House, and the governor's representatives to come together on a unified budget and all agree, because everybody has different opinions with the money that we have from the state, but then also tying in potential money coming in from the stimulus, tying in the fact of what kind of requirements are attached to that, because some of the stimulus money is already directed, it has to be used for certain purposes. Also, there's some money that we have more liberty with, or I say the governor has more liberty with. How do you factor all that in? Look at a short-term goal of trying to hold people as harmless as possible, but also try to manage that money and not assume that everything's just going to be good in 6 months, and try to map out a long-term plan has made things really difficult this year. And that's why, at this point we don't have a budget agreement. We're in the process of putting that together. But I think overall, nationwide, things are not going to be comfortable with a lot of budgets. This is going to be a very tight and potentially a budget time where some cuts are made. But I think trying to work that out to be as responsible short term and be as visionary long term, so that that we kind of stage out of this downturn as best we can.
So it seems as if with the stimulus package, we have a lot of money flowing around, but we want to remember that our basic and core budget numbers was well over $750 million short. We have a lot of money coming in, but there's a lot of questions about how to spend, as I understand from you, Todd, the new money, as well as balance the shortfall. Talk a little bit about that shortfall and how that actually does impact us.
Well, the shortfall, I mean, if we weren't looking at the stimulus money coming in, we would have to look at the shortfall and try to figure out, where are we going to either cut budgets and how are we going to do that. But that shortfall, we're also kind of trying to work off of projections for 2011, 2012, 2013. And so anything that we try to do in the short term, we also want to be wise enough to, to be projecting out far enough. So, for example, on the stimulus money, we might have a pot of, X number of dollars, and everybody says, short term, we could make ourselves feel a lot better by just, infusing everybody with that money. But all of a sudden, a year from now, we're in the same situation. We've spent all the stimulus money. Maybe it would have been better to do a little bit at a time. And I think that's the balancing act that we're in. And like I said, you've got the governor, the Senate, and the House. Each entity has their own perspective on that. So it's a very challenging process to get everybody to come together. And I think one thing that Oklahomans can be proud of is at this point, I know with the leadership in the House, the effort is there to work together and not be combative in those efforts. I think we have respectfully agreed to disagree on some issues. We have, stated our opinions, but in the end are willing to say we need to come to the table and not just draw a line in the sand and battle each other, because we need to unite and move forward.
Maybe you have ideas through the research that you have done about the budget. Your representative, Todd Thomsen, would love to hear from you. Todd, as always, thanks for stopping by mylegislator.tv.
Hey, it's great to be here, and I look forward to anybody coming up to the Capitol, and always appreciate any input from calls or emails. And I appreciate you viewing this and taking the time to learn more about your legislators and the legislation. Thank you.